All right, so we're going to start. It is now 1 o'clock. Anyone who's late, shame on them. But thank you guys for being early. I really do appreciate it. So this, I think, will be a very, very good presentation. Anyway, I hope it will be, if I can present it in the right way. So today, what we're going to be talking about is build your firm's 2023 sales and marketing plan. I think, again, this will be very actionable. And if any of you want to book a private call with me, I've already done this actually with a few of you on here, believe it or not. But if you want to book a private call with me and rehash these numbers, go over your exact numbers, we can always do that. Just let me know in chat and I can send you a link to my calendar. So the goal of this session is to help you head into 2023 with a plan in place so you can hit your goals. Little side note, the way to your goals will be boring. I know that doesn't sound exciting, but if you can be consistent with what I will show you here today, you will hit your goals. It's funny, I follow this guy and I talk about him a lot in my videos. His name is Alex Hormozi, and one of his lines is do the boring work. And it really is boring over, a long period of time if you're consistent, but it will truly, truly help you hit your goals. And again, the process that I'm going to show you here today is very, very simple. And the firms who follow this process close really, really high. They exceed their expectations, and it's really fun to see it play out, over the course of the months and years that we've been working with them. So this is a quick agenda. First, we're going to talk about what do you want. We're going to go into the projections and budget creation part, because I think that's what a lot of you are interested in, is what does it actually take to hit your goals. Then we're going to go into daily tasks that you need to be doing, weekly tasks that you need to be doing from a sales standpoint. We're going to cover the sales process in a very basic way. I'm going to talk about the different stages, and then I'm going to show you how I actually manage my stages in my pipeline and what we teach our clients to do as well. And again, the people who follow this really, really do well. And even when I follow it, and because again, sometimes, I'll get lazy. When I go back into complete follow the process mode, my results really go through the roof. So I really want to harp on this process that we're going to get to in a few slides here. And then we're going to talk about channels you consider. Now, normally when I talk about this, I go through the individual channels themselves. I want to do it from an evergreen standpoint or from like a strategy and concept standpoint, just so you guys have a framework that you can use to pick a channel when you're going after a new channel or you're considering a channel for your firm. All right. So the first is, how much money do you want to make? And the answer, please don't let the answer be, I want to be rich. This was our answer years and years and years ago when me and Eric were a lot younger. Eric is my business partner. And as a result, we didn't know where we were going. We didn't know how we were going to get there. We just knew we wanted to, quote unquote, be rich. So make sure that you pick a number in your firm, and that number can change. It doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, I set my goal and now I'm way off from my goal. How am I ever going to recover? You can always change that number once you start getting some data. So for a lot of you, if you're not tracking your metrics, you may not have data and you may not have an accurate idea or a realistic idea of how you can actually hit your goal. Once you start doing your marketing, you will have data, and that data is going to be super powerful in reforming your projections and actually making them very, very realistic and extremely hittable. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to go to this data analysis sheet here that I've created. And I'm working on a much cleaner version of this online that you guys will actually be able to play with yourself. It should be done in the next couple of weeks. But this sheet is actually super, super helpful. Now, a couple of disclaimers about this sheet. Number one, this sheet almost happens in a vacuum. So it's almost like the worst case scenario if your advertising played out by the numbers here. And what I mean by that is what this sheet does not take into account is it does not take into account referrals. It does not take into account what I call the snowball effect or rollover effect. What that means is leads that are generated this month, some of those leads will close next month, and some of those leads will even close month 3, and some of those leads will even close month 4. The leads that are closing in month 4 were generated in month 1. This does not take into account the different cohorts of leads that close throughout the year. So again, you're not getting the benefit of a snowball effect here. You're not getting the benefit of any additional referrals coming to your firm through the marketing that you're actually doing. And you're also not getting the benefit of any SEO that this provides or any organic marketing that this is going to provide for you. So this is truly happening in a vacuum. It is almost the worst case scenario. But what this sheet is going to show you is, A, what are the metrics that we need to monitor on a daily and weekly basis in our firm? It's also going to show you what does your budget need to be. It's going to show you what your average case value needs to be to maintain your goal, and how many leads you're going to need on a regular basis. So I'm going to talk through the sheet, and then this is going to relate to our daily and weekly tasks. All right. So I'm going to tie it all together for you. So I know this looks intimidating, but I'm going to talk through it very, very simply. In this column, what we have are the actual marketing metrics. Now, the lead cost for a lot of different practice areas pretty much anything but DUI and personal injury is going to be around this lead cost. Now, this lead cost is coming from Google because this is primarily what we run for our clients. So I'm going to use that as a baseline. Other purchase lead vendors, their lead costs will fall very similar to these lead costs. So again, we can change this number. And if you want to see different numbers, put them in chat. So I'm going to put a $65 lead cost here. I'm actually going to bump that up to $70 just so we can have some realistic numbers here. Now, this appointment book rate, appointment show rate, and close rate, I'm going to talk more about these on the next slide, but just know this is what makes up your sales process. Whether or not you visualized it like this before, this is how your firm functions from a sales standpoint. Now, ultimately, what a lot of people report on and what a lot of people just shorthand will tell you is what is your raw closing rate? Meaning if we generate 100 leads for you, how many of those 100 leads did you close? And if you're closing 20% of 100 leads raw coming into your firm that are not referrals, then you're doing very, very well. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, man, 20% is really garbage, but a lot of you are maybe used to running on referrals and word of mouth, and those leads are going to close way higher because referrals automatically trust you. If you're dealing with a cold marketing source, meaning they don't know who you are, there's no brand loyalty, a 20% closing rate is extremely high. Now, how I arrived at this 20% closing rate is you just times these numbers by each other. So 70% times 70% times 40% equals 20%. Just as an example, if I drop this to 60, this number is going to change. Now, the reason we need this 20% number is this is going to tell us how many leads that we need for the year based on how many cases we need for the year to hit our revenue goal. So that is why these numbers are here, and your average case value is here, so we can determine how many cases we need to actually hit our revenue goal. So that's what these numbers are, and I will rehash these a few times just so you guys understand why they're there and what they're doing in my formulas. Now, as far as revenue goal, this is, again, where we need to start, is how much money do we want to make in 2023? Now, let's just say that we want to make $500,000, right, for the year. This is going to change all of my numbers. So what this means is if I want to make $500,000 and my average case value is $3,500, I'm going to need 142 cases for the year. Now, in order to get 142 cases, if I close at 20%, I will need 728 leads for the year. Now, how that is determined is you take 142 and you divide it by 20%. And when I say 20%, I mean 0.20 if you're going to do it on a calculator. So that is how you arrive at the number of leads needed to actually get to that caseload. Now, in order to get that, the budget that you will need is $51,000 if you're paying $70 a lead. And this is very simple to calculate. It's just the number of leads needed times our average lead cost. Okay, so if we're purchasing leads or we're getting leads from a different source and they're cheaper, or you have some organic in there and you have a total media spend versus your total leads, you can calculate your average lead cost for your firm as a whole. So that is the budget that we're going to need, and we're going to need to do 12 cases every single month, and we're going to need 61 cases or 61 leads every single month. Now, how this plays out on a monthly basis is right here. So if we're starting at 61 leads every single month, we have to hit this number. This is a number that we're going to maintain and we're going to report on every single week. We are going to need 43 appointments booked. So we're going to take our booking rate here, meaning every lead that comes in, 70% of them are going to book an appointment with us. That's going to give us 43 appointments, meaning 43 consultations on our calendar that hopefully will all show up. Now, we know that not everybody shows up to their consultation. Let's just say that 70% of the people who book a consultation, 70% of those people actually show up to a consultation. That means that every single month we need to do 30 consultations. 30 people need to sit for a consultation and we need to pitch them our services. And if we're closing at 40% of those, we are closing 12 people a month, which is going to keep us on track for our goal. Now, what's nice about this is that's going to give us $41,000 in revenue. And if you take that out throughout the year, that's going to equal our total of $500,000. Now, what do we need as far as a marketing budget is concerned? If we're generating 61 leads every single month, we need $4,200 in marketing budget for our media spend. This does not factor in vendor costs. So if you have a vendor that you're using, then you need to put their costs on top of that. But again, usually vendors will not scale as you're scaling up. So they have a fixed cost, hopefully. If they're scaling with your spend, well, then that's fine. You just need to add that to the equation. But generally, if you have a flat fee vendor, it's nice because then that's just one bucket, one spend. Yeah, you'll have a recording of this. And I can go through this with you personally if you want, where I just talk through your numbers specifically. So $4,200 a month is what you need to spend. Now, if you take that minus your total revenue, you're going to clear $37,000 every single month. Now, obviously, you have your own firm expenses. So those are things that you have to consider. But these are the numbers that we're going to be looking at. And now what I want to show you is I want to manipulate these numbers a little bit, and then we're going to get into the sales process and sales tasks that you need to have either yourself or your staff doing, so we make sure we hit these numbers. Because these numbers, again, they don't always look this pretty and they don't always stay this consistent. There'll be weeks where you have a really good week and there'll be weeks where you have a bad week, but we need to make sure on aggregate we are moving in the right direction. So I'm going to manipulate these numbers just a tiny bit so you can see how much of an impact a simple number like your book rate can have on your whole entire formula. So I actually did I did a few of these calls in the last couple of weeks with clients, non-clients, and we actually worked out their numbers if they recorded them. So it's really important to actually record your numbers, because if you don't know your numbers, there's no way we can improve this process. And the attorney that I was talking to had a really solid closing rate. He actually had an 80% show rate, but he had a 40% booking rate. So now you can see that what he needs to do to hit his goal is he now needs to spend $6,500. And because of his lack of efficiencies on the booking rate, he now has to spend more money. And so while a closing rate of 40% is good, you're probably feeling pretty good as a salesperson, like, yeah, I'm closing at 40% because that is a really high closing rate. If you can just improve this number here, your entire budget is going to go down substantially because you're being more efficient with your marketing. Now, if we can get these numbers even higher, because there are attorneys who get these numbers much higher, 80% booking rate, let's say you have a 90% show rate and a 40% close rate. Now you can see that you only need to spend $2,800 a month in marketing to hit your $500,000 a year, which is extremely, extremely efficient. Now, again, keeping these numbers this efficient is the trick, but I just like to show you guys the impact of improving your overall step-by-step, your overall sales funnel. It can have a tremendous impact on your bottom line because the rest of that money is profit going right in your pocket. Now, the other thing to consider is your case value. So this $3,500 is more like a transactional type case value, something like an estate plan or a trust. If you're in a litigation-based practice where you have a larger lifetime value per client, let's say that you make $7,500 off of your average divorce client, and I'm going to dial these numbers back to benchmark, which is 70%, 70%, and I'll do 30% here. Then you can see how different this looks now, right? You're still going to hit your 500K. You only need to spend $31,000 a year. You only need 6 cases a month. And this is on, just relatively benchmark metrics. Again, if we bump these numbers up, this becomes a whole lot easier. So having the ability to look at these numbers and then play with them and then see what your actual numbers are to make sure that you're on track or off track will really, really help you. So we can revisit this sheet if you guys want, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the presentation and talk about the sales process, and then I'll talk about your weekly tasks. So again, you want to know how much money you want to make. You want to have all these metrics dialed in. And if you don't have these metrics, that's not a bad thing. That just means that you have room for improvement. And it's very easy to gather these metrics. I'm going to show you how to gather all of these things. So these are the numbers that we need to know. These are the numbers that we just reviewed in the firm. So number one, we need to know the total number of leads coming into the firm. Now, this is a good lead or a bad lead. We don't want to not count the bad leads, because if we're getting a ton of bad leads, that's something that we can fix. So total number of inquiries coming into the firm. This is every time that phone rings, or this is every time that contact form gets filled out in your firm. We want to know how many of those are coming in. Now, out of those, again, a certain percentage of people are actually going to book a consultation with you. So we need to know how many of those leads are actually booking a consultation. This is going to be our first metric that we're able to manipulate and that we're able to improve your overall profitability. Now, again, from that, a certain percentage of those people who book on your calendar are actually going to show up. This is our second metric that we can manipulate, and we can do this with reminders. We can do this with phone calls. Again, we want to push people to the consult, because if we close 40% of all the people we talk to, we want to talk to as many people as possible. Now, the next number that we need to know is out of those people who actually show up to our consultation, this could be a phone consult, this could be a Zoom, this could be an in-person, how many of those people actually sign and pay? And generally for attorneys, it's actually pretty high. You guys actually close really high. In the high ticket industry as a whole, which anything high ticket is like above $3,000, 30 to 40% is like a rock star salesperson. And generally attorneys close at this level. So I'm not as worried about your closing rate as I am the book rate and the show rate and the overall efficiencies of your sales funnel. Generally attorneys close very, very high. So we want to know these numbers though, so we know if we have a problem in one of these areas. Once we have the idea if we have a problem or don't have a problem, we can fix it. And again, I'm going to show you how to monitor this in the next slide and actually in a CRM. So what are the daily tasks that you need to do? And this will make sense as soon as I share my screen. Is first, you need to work the pipeline. And second is you need to never, ever miss a phone call. And this is an easy problem to fix. Either you have a full-time receptionist or you hire an answering company. Missing a phone call is extremely harmful to your closing rate. People who miss phone calls, they generally will close 10% and below on the raw leads, meaning if you get 100 leads, 10% of them or less are closing. So missing phone calls is a serious crime. I highly recommend that you fix this if this is an issue. And if you don't know if this is an issue, you should be tracking all of your calls through a call tracking software. All right, so when I say work the pipeline, what do I mean by that? I'm going to share my screen now with a CRM here. This is actually what we provide to our clients, but this is a simple CRM. A bunch of different CRMs do this. So Clio Grow does this, Lawmatics does this, HubSpot does this, Salesforce does this. This is not something that's unique to this system. Every single CRM system out there has what's called a sales pipeline. Now, when we look at this pipeline, how this works is every time a new lead comes into your firm, we put it in the new lead column. Now, from there, all of these leads, I like to view this as a game. I either want to say this person is not qualified or I want to move them to the right of my pipeline. So every time a new lead comes in, your objective at this point is to move this person over to a consult book stage or disqualify them as a lead. So let's say Dumbledore here is not a good lead. He's looking for the wrong service. We actually can't help him. What I want to do is get Dumbledore out of my pipeline. I want to go in here and I want to say that the status of this lead is lost, right? I don't want to see him anymore. I don't want to take up mental resources looking at Dumbledore. So this is how you manage your pipeline. Now, from here, the people in the consult book stage, we're just keeping them here. They're already on our calendar. We're happy. And if we're doing extra credit, we're calling Harry Potter and we're calling Bruce Banner, and we're making sure that a day before their consultation, we're going to call them and make sure that they show up, or they reschedule for another time that they can't show up, and we open up a calendar spot for ourselves. Now, the people at the consultation attended stage, these are where they start getting valuable. And you can see that this person has a value assigned to him because Tony Stark, I talked to him. I determined that he was a valuable case. He was worth $4,500 to me, and I want to close this guy. Now, in this stage, I'm calling this person or I'm emailing them or I'm texting them to get them to say, hey, yeah, I want to move forward. And all of my consult attended stages will pile up, and I'll have a long list of people here to call and hopefully move over to the contract signed and payment stage. Now, the people in the contract signed stage, this means that they have signed, and now they're even more valuable to us because they've taken yet another step in our sales process. And now these are the people I really, really want to work. So Steve Rogers, I'm making sure I'm calling him, I'm following up with him on almost an every other day basis. So I'm really going after this guy. And then in the payment stage, this means that they've won. We're very happy. We closed a client. We closed John M. Doe, and he was worth $6,000 to us. Now, every time we rack someone up over here in the payment stage, what this is going to do for us is it's going to keep track of how many people we have and the total value associated with them. And what this is going to allow us to do is determine our average case value. So you can put initial retainers here, or you could put lifetime values that you projected out based on your averages if you have that level of data. If you don't have that level of data, I would just stick with initial retainers, take the total number of clients times the total number of money made, and that's your average case value for the projection sheet. Now, that is what you're doing at every stage. The way that you should have your salesperson approach this pipeline is they want to start at the right side and work to the left. Now, there's a reason for that. The reason we want to start all the way to the right is the leads all the way to the right are the hottest leads because they've taken the most steps in our sales process and they are the ones closest to paying us. So we want to start all the way to the right because we don't want to let our hot leads die, because every day that goes by, there's a little bit of decay in that lead value. Every single day, let's say they talk to another attorney, or let's say that maybe they're reconciling with their spouse if it's a divorce thing. Every single day that goes by, we are losing value on that lead. It's literally called aging your leads. So when you come into your sales day, what you want to do is you want to start at the contract sign stage. I'm going to call Steve Rogers and I'm going to say, hey, Steve, did you get a chance to get your payment information together? And if he says yes, great, I'm going to move him to the payment stage. Otherwise, I'm at least keeping the conversation going. He's remembering that, oh yeah, I need to get that money over to them. From there, the consultation attended stage. This will probably be one of your largest columns because you're going to have a lot of consultations every week. So this stage could take a little bit of time to work through. Generally, when I work through my leads in the consult attended stage, I'm in B2B, so it's a little bit different, right? I'm following up with attorneys. So generally, I stick to email. I don't like to call the office and talk to the intake company. But what I like to do is I like to hit different mediums. So sometimes if I know I have their cell phone number, I'll shoot them a quick text. Sometimes I'll give them a call. Sometimes I'll give them a call and leave a voicemail. Sometimes I'll shoot them an email. And I'm going back and forth between the different mediums, so it's not super harassing. If I keep texting people over and over and over and over again, they're gonna be, oh my gosh, this guy won't leave me alone. So it gets a little invasive. So the way to follow up with people more effectively is to do it through different mediums. And one of the tricks is you can call them and not leave a voicemail, because then it's not as invasive. And then the next time you call them, you can leave a voicemail. And this is a little more invasive to where now they know that you called them and you left them a voicemail. So they got 2 notifications on their phone. Then the next time you can shoot them a text message. Then the next time you can shoot them an email. And depending on what their preferred contact method is, you'll start to discover that for your different leads. And then you can kind of go through that channel. Like for me, I know when I talk to certain prospects of mine, some of them only text me back. And so I'll just text them, and I just won't do it as frequently because I don't want to be in their face too much. Some of them I know only respond to email. And so I will email those people, and I won't call them, and I won't text them, and I won't do anything else other than email. So you'll start to learn that flow as a salesperson, or if you have a salesperson, educate them on this process of bouncing between the different contact methods so you don't pound a lead too hard and irritate people. So again, consult attended stage is a very, very valuable stage. These are the people that we're trying to get over to the contract sign stage because they're closer to paying us. Consult booked is a stage that we don't really have to worry about because they're already on our calendar. And if we want to send them reminders, we can do the extra credit and send them reminders by either calling them or leaving them a voicemail. And then finally, at the end of the day, let's say we have time, we get to our new lead stage. And the reason, again, we're doing it this way is because the new leads are not as valuable because we don't know anything about them. The leads all the way to the right are valuable and they already have values associated with them. So let's just say that I'm the attorney and I'm working my pipeline. If I run out of time in my 10-minute to 15-minute routine every day, I want to make sure that I hit the people who are going to pay me first. Ideally, you're working every lead in your pipeline. And a really good rule of thumb, which I have in the presentation there, is clear your pipeline out, is in a perfect world, this new lead stage is empty. They're either disqualified or they're booked on a calendar. So this stage, if it's empty, you're doing a really, really good job because you're touching every single lead. Now, another thing that you should get in the habit in is taking notes on the leads. And this can be just a quick note. So if I'm going into John Jones here, I'm leaving a note that John Jones was broke. He could not afford my services. Now, if I start to see that too much, right, where all of my leads have no money, I'm going to start to evaluate that lead source because maybe I don't want to keep paying for leads for that source. Or if it's a marketing campaign, maybe I need to adjust something in my marketing to stop attracting people who have no money. Things like income filters, things like targeting the right area, all those different things come into play when you're actually taking notes on these leads. So again, the reason this is so valuable is this is going to give me the information to go back to my projection sheet and now be armed with the correct information because every one of these stages is a stage in that sales process. All right, so I hope that makes sense. Now, what we're going to talk about is the weekly sales task. So the first thing you want to do is you want to review your scorecard. And I'm going to show you what this looks like after I complete this slide. We're going to diagnose the different issues that can arise from your scorecard, and then we're going to implement fixes. And so I'll talk about this in just a second here. So again, just to review what we looked at here, we had our book rate, our show rate, our close rate. That was exactly what we looked at in the pipeline itself. Now, on a weekly basis, there's a book called Traction out there, and it talks about how to hit your goals. And I'm just peeling out a tiny piece of it. There's something called a scorecard. And what I've set up here is just a sales scorecard. So this does not take into account any other metric in your firm, administrative or operations. This is strictly sales. But if we plot these numbers on a weekly basis, what it allows us to do is get ahead of any problems. Because if we look at our numbers at the end of the quarter, well, then we can't fix that past data. It's gone and we had a bad quarter. But if we look at our numbers every single week and we start to notice that we're trending down, well, now we have a problem and now we need to fix that problem. And luckily for you guys, there's so many leads out there for what you guys do that it's very easy to adjust things on a week-to-week basis. So I'm going to take you through an example of what this would look like in a month, right? I'm just going to run through this really quick. And then we're going to evaluate our totals. And then we're going to go back to our plan and say, okay, are we on track or are we off track? So let's say in week 1, we got 30 leads, 13 people booked an appointment, 5 of them attended, and we got 2 sales, right? This is pretty good. I don't know if it's good, actually. I don't know if it's bad. Let's say the next week, we got 20 leads, we got 10 appointments, we got 8 of them attended, and we had 4 of them closed, right? Solid week. This week, we had 25, we had 15, we had 6, we had 3. I'm just putting random numbers here. I don't know how this is going to look. 15 leads, 10, 6, 1. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to review these week by week. Yeah, Traction is awesome. EOS is amazing. For sure. It changed our business. Literally, it changed our whole entire business. And we just so happened to do it during COVID, which literally everything crashed for us during COVID, and Traction helped us turn it all around in like a year. So it was amazing. So if I'm evaluating this, right, and I'm going through my numbers, I can see that I have a pretty strong closing rate. I'm pretty happy with that. Overall, my closing rate is 40%. Great. That's where I want to be. I am on track for that, because if we go back to our plan here, I'm actually above my benchmark number. I'm above my KPI for closing, because 30% is going to let me hit my goal. All right. Now, if I go to my appointment show rate, 52%, let's go back to my plan. I need to be at 70% to hit these numbers. And then if I go to my book rate, I'm at 53%. So I have a little bit of a problem here. And if I go week to week, right, you can see that I'm not where I need to be. I need to start implementing fix. Now you can see here, maybe I'm on an uptrend. Maybe I'm doing something right. Over here, I'm actually kind of all over the place. I need to evaluate these two levels in my sales process, because if I hit these numbers right here, I'm going to copy these numbers, 53, 52, 40. Let's see what my goals look like. 53, 52, and 40. My overall raw closing rate is 11%. I needed to be at 15, and in the first example I showed you, it was 20%. So you can see now that I am not nearly as efficient as I can be, and as a result, I'm going to have to pay more in my marketing budget to overcome my inefficiencies. When instead of paying more, I can just go fix these numbers. So if we go back to our slide here, right, we need to diagnose the different issues that we're having. And the issues that we're having in our scorecard is my book rate is not good and my show rate is not good. I need to fix these. My closing rate is solid. I'm closing very well, so I need to talk to as many people as possible. I need to fix these two numbers. So if I go over here and I want to fix these issues, what are some things that I can do to fix these issues? So for the booking rate, it's relatively easy, right? Don't miss phone calls, which I had in that first daily task. And make sure you're following up with the leads in the new lead stage. So are we texting them? Are we emailing them? Are we calling them? Firms that we work with that close very, very high touch their leads 15 to 20 times through different channels. So that's phone calls, that's emails, and that's text messages. So that is like their new lead follow-up mechanism is 20 touches. So you can imagine how much more pull through you're going to get in that funnel if you're touching the lead 20 times. Now you may be thinking, well, what if people start hating me? In my opinion, if you're not getting people to tell you to leave me alone, you're probably not following up enough. So that is an easy fix that you can put into place to get more leads to book on your calendar. Now, if you're not having people attend their meetings, this is actually a really easy solution. I would use a system like Calendly. So this is a booking software where you either book the meeting for them or they book it themselves, but generally you can book it for them. And what this is going to do is it's going to send them an email, it's going to send them a text message. And then if you wanted to, again, you could do the extra credit and actually call them 24 hours before their appointment. So just reminders, just installing reminders into your workflow will work wonders for you. So personally, just a personal story, I switched from Calendly about 6 months ago to another system. It was actually the system in the CRM that we use for booking meetings, and my appointment rate actually dropped. And as soon as I saw that, I went back to Calendly and right back up. My appointment rate shot right back up. So Calendly, I have a lot of faith in their system. It never breaks. It's super consistent, and it facilitates text messages, which I really, really like for reminders, because text messages get like 100% open rate. So if you're not using Calendly to remind people for Zoom calls or even phone calls, I highly recommend that you do that. Other ways that you can get people to show up for their appointment is once they've booked an appointment, you can send them a video telling them what you're going to go over and asking, hey, please don't stand me up. In my workflow, I actually have something that says, hey, have you ever been really excited for a date with a new, girlfriend or boyfriend, and then they stood you up? It hurts, doesn't it? Don't do that to me. And so I get, some people actually think that's funny, and they'll show up just to tell me that they think that's fun. So just a couple side bits there. All right. So now that we understand the metrics, we understand the weekly tasks, the scorecard, diagnosing issues, and implementing fixes. Let's go on to channels, right? So we've talked about our budget. We've talked about what does it take to actually hit our goals. And I can go back to that spreadsheet if you want to see it again. We've talked about the process of actually hitting our goals. And let me just reiterate, it does get boring working your pipeline. I'm in charge of that for our company, and it's very boring going through that pipeline every single day. But again, the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the better the results are going to be when you go through it. And you will actually see those results happening over the course of a month, 2 months, 3 months. So now we're going to talk about which channels you should consider and which you should ignore. And I have a lot of videos on my YouTube and webinars I've done where I talk about each individual channel, how it works, what you should spend, the expectations, the timeline to success. This one, I want to be a little more evergreen. I kind of want to just teach you basic strategy of the channels. And you can evaluate channels based on that. You can also call BS when you see things like, hey, I just got 3 million leads off of TikTok and all that stuff, because I see those headlines too and they really get to me. So first is choose a channel with a high likelihood of success. And I have in parentheses, duh. But again, you'd be shocked when you're evaluating channels. A lot of channels out there seem really, really sexy and like, oh my gosh, I can go viral and make a whole bunch of money. And there really is no magic formula out there. There truly isn't. I've seen every marketing channel. I've been a part of radio campaigns, TV campaigns, iHeartRadio, Google, Facebook, TikTok, all of it. And I've never seen something just be unbelievable. Like, wow, this thing's amazing. And if it does go that way, it usually wears off after some time, right? It's going to be boring, but it's going to be consistent. That's what we want. The other thing is funnel hack your competitors. So for those of you who are Russell Brunson fans, Russell Brunson is the owner of ClickFunnels. ClickFunnels, I'm sure you've heard of. And ClickFunnels is built on an idea of funnel hacking, meaning going through your competitors' workflow and seeing exactly what they're doing and then copying that. So if you go to the firms in your area that you know are having success, and telltale signs of that is how many reviews do they have, how much are they spending on ads. There's different softwares out there that you can actually spy on them. You can go to their Facebook ad library and look at their ads. So I would go through and funnel hack what they're doing. So A, are they running Google ads? B, are they running Facebook ads? C, are they getting Google reviews? D, are they on all the listing platforms? Go see what they're doing. Just stalk them for a while and see exactly what they're doing. This is really going to help you formulate a plan and also get an idea of what they're having the most success with, because you'll be able to see where they're at the most. If they're only doing Google, well, then there's your answer. They're only doing Google and they're having a lot of success with it. And again, what are those channels? So once you funnel hack your competitors, this is an easy way to determine like, hey, this is working, this is not working. I do this all the time with my competitors. And as a result, I know the channels that work very well for this vertical. So the first concept is it's very easy to meet a demand. There are a lot of channels out there where you can just simply meet the demand for your services. And some of you may be thinking like, there's not a whole lot of demand, or like, I don't have clients spilling in. You're just not on the right channel. So any search-based channel, you're meeting a demand. And what this is so important to consider here is these are people who are at the bottom of the funnel. So when you think of the marketing funnel, people who don't know what they have a problem with, or people who are ready to buy, wouldn't you rather just target all the people ready to do business with you? That is literally an option when you are doing marketing. So anything that is search-based, and when I say search-based, I mean like Google or Bing, or they're on Yahoo, or they're on like a FindLaw website. So all of these different platforms that are search-based, they all come from intent, meaning that people are searching for your services because they have an immediate need and they want to solve that need. So Google is really the king of this. This is why Google is so powerful, is because they're one of the only platforms that harnesses this level of intent. Before Google, everything was interruption based. You had radio, you had TV, you had all these other mediums, you had people knocking on your door. These are all interruption based marketing channels where you're doing something and an ad pops into your face and you hope that it works. So think about, like, I like to give this example. It's actually a really good example I heard recently. Think about people who advertise pharmaceutical drugs. When they're advertising on TV, let's say they're advertising for rheumatoid arthritis. There are not tons and tons of people with that. I mean, there probably are a lot of people, but percentage wise, it's not super, super common. But when they advertise for it, they call it out and they're just hoping that their ad is hitting the right people at the right time. But pharmaceutical companies have tons and tons of money to spray and pray with. So again, we're not that lucky. So we have to be much more efficient with our marketing. And so it's much easier to just put your ad in front of somebody that's already asking for what you do than it is to go out there and generate a demand. So rule of thumb, if you're using a search-based channel like your Google, your LSA, your SEO, your Avo, your FindLaw, purchase leads, all of these channels are going to be very high intent because they're already looking for your services. So if you think about the way Avo works, if somebody gets there and they're looking for an attorney, they're there specifically looking to solve their problem. Same with FindLaw. Also, when people Google attorney near me or divorce attorney near me, Avo and FindLaw rank very, very high. And so they're harnessing that search traffic. Same with purchase leads. A lot of the ways that purchase leads are generated are through your Google-based mediums, and how those people make money is they just tack on a fee on top of the lead cost. So if I pay Google $70 for a probate lead, well, then the purchase lead company, I think Legal Match is one of them. There's a few others out there. They're just going to put on $20-$30 on top of that lead cost and sell it to you and make the difference. So that's how those companies work. And the way they make a lot of money is they will sprinkle in cheaper leads, bad leads that don't cost as much to them, tack on that same amount of money, and now make even more on the spread. So that's why generally, if you're doing purchase leads, you'll have really good leads and you'll have really horrible leads. It's because they're balancing their profits. So those are search-based channels though, and those are channels where you're simply meeting a demand. These are channels with a very high likelihood of success. I know these channels work, and so if they're not working for you, something was done wrong. Now, demand generation channels are much different. So getting in front of clients before they need you and generating interest with value-based videos and content. And so great examples of these and the ones that are taking off now are your Facebook, your TikToks, your YouTubes. Older school channels are like your TV, your radio, your billboards. Now, they all work, especially those other channels, but you just have to have a lot of money and a lot of time to put into them. Every single channel can work. You just have to have the time and the patience to let it work. And so if I'm approaching a firm and I'm starting a firm myself, right, I would rather start with what I know is going to work. There's a very dialed in process. There's very dialed in KPIs. And then once I've reached 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, even on one single channel, only then would I start experimenting with new channels. And I would be experimenting because I would want cheaper costs, or I'm just trying to expand my market share. So once I've tapped out Google and I've got all the clients I can off Google, and you're still going to get new clients, then I would go to like a TikTok and I would try and experiment with that. And I would go in with the expectation that, look, I have no clue what I'm doing here. Probably not a lot of people do for my specific firm, but I'm going to experiment. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to commit a year or 2 years to it. Because the tricky thing with these types of mediums is there's a presenter. So you have to do a video, means you have to be good on camera. You have to have good video editing skills. Otherwise your videos will look cheap and maybe it will scare people away. It'll have the opposite effect. And then you have to test the different content that you have to put out there. And also what happens in these channels is if a content piece really hits, it's only going to hit for so long before you have to create another one and another one and another one and another one. So that's the tricky thing with demand generation channels. Can they be profitable? Absolutely. We run a lot of our business off of Facebook. And I'm telling you, as someone who uses a demand generation channel, I hate it because I have to constantly produce new ads. I have to constantly deal with rising costs. Whereas Google, when we run Google, it's much more efficient. It's much more consistent, and I can really rely on it. So those kind of the different ways that you want to think about dealing with the different channels. I have other videos where I talk about each channel individually. I talk about the cost, the timeline to success, all that different stuff. But if you break it into two separate categories, meeting a demand versus demand generation, it is much easier to meet a demand. All right. So that's a very simple concept to just live by. I wanted to be a little more evergreen with that than I did more tactical. But I hope this was helpful for you guys. Do you guys have any questions? There are quite a lot of you on here. If you have any questions about the projections or what kind of budget would it take to hit $1 million and my case value is X and all this stuff, if you have those questions, you can put them in chat now, or you can book a call with me separately. You could do that on our website. You can do that in the Facebook group itself. And I'd be more than happy to go through that spreadsheet with you and talk about your individual goals and the best way to hit them. Any questions? Don't be shy. Otherwise, I'll sign off here. All right. Looks like out of all of you, we have no questions. I'm shocked. Quiet bunch. Can we get a copy of the data analysis form? Oh, you mean that spreadsheet that I was using? Yeah, I can put that. I'll put that in the Facebook group on a separate post. That way it's there for everybody to use. And all you have to do, so when I put it in there, let me just show you really quick. So when I put it in there for you to use this, what you want to do is click file and make a copy. And this will allow you to be able to edit this. And then the numbers that you want to change will be the lead cost, the case value, and your revenue goal. These are the numbers that you want to manipulate the most. These also, but I would leave these as benchmarks, which would be 70, 70, and 30. So I'll make these yellow for you. That way, you know that you can play with those after the fact. The main inputs, though, are these. And that's what's going to give you your overall goal. Good question. There's a couple more coming through. Yep, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Thank you for being here. We appreciate the time. All right, guys. Well, if there's nothing else, I really appreciate all the time. Again, be active in the group. If you want to see more stuff like this, where I get more and more detailed with these metrics, I'm a very big data nerd. I can go way deeper on this. So let me know. I appreciate the time. This recording will be up on YouTube. All right. Have a great day.